My name's Ruth. I'm a textile artist, a quilt maker, an illustrator, and I've been doing this for a fair while now, but I thought it would be fun to maybe share some of this journey on YouTube. I'm committing in my head to maybe 10 little episodes, and I'll see how I feel about it after that. So for the first episode, I thought it would be fun to take you on a studio tour. So we're going to head on upstairs and check out my studio. To your left, it's a little scary. That's the Lego room, which was cleaned up a week ago. At least it's being used. And then to the right, we walk into my studio. So I'm very fortunate to have this space. We built our house ourselves and really wanted to have a well-functioning studio in the home. I'm so thankful for how that worked out. So when you come into the studio to the right, there's this cupboard which looks quite boring, but it's actually a pretty cool cupboard. Phil made it specifically to store my quilts in. So quilts like this are best stored rolled rather than folded because the fibres can deteriorate on the folds over time. So I've always made a point of storing my art quilts on rolls like this. And because they're hanging, there's no pressure on them, so they're not going to flatten in any way. So each roll will have 3 or 4 quilts on it. It's a big mess, so ignore that, but it is a very cool system for storing quilts and room for plenty more still. And then in the centre of the studio, we have my cutting table. My husband Phil made this for me and I love it. It's a good standing height. So this is where I will cut out my quilts and also do my screen printing. It's just a really good height for that. So I spend a lot of time there. And then around next to the cutting table is this really cool storage unit, which is full of these black crates. These are super sturdy crates. I think we have about 30 in our house. They're that good. We've picked them up from salvage yards over the years. I think they used to store flower bulbs, going by some of the labels stuck to them. But yeah, these contain a lot of messy stuff like packaging, like dyes and dyeing equipment, and just some bits of fabric that I'll use for future projects, like some bits that have been screen printed in the past. That's our little TV there. It gets mostly used for Nintendo. I don't love it in my studio, but I'm happy that it's not in my lounge. All right, and then turning around from the cutting table, we have my little drawing corner. Okay, so one of the most important criteria when we were designing the studio was space for a design wall. So you may have noticed the studio's built mostly under sloping ceilings. So this is the one main wall in the studio. It's quite big, but it's not always big enough. Some of my quilts have certainly stretched over to overlap the windows on both sides, but all good. I know it's a real treat to have a design wall like this. And I love having samples and bits that I've made on there just as inspiration or reminders of projects that I want to get back to. So this here is my drawing corner. I've had drawing corners at various parts of the house over the years. Not that long ago and for a long time it was down in the lounge, which was perfect, but we did some rearranging in the lounge and it just made sense for me to bring my drawing corner up here. The nice thing is we've got a window there and then we've also got some skylights in the sloping roof up there. So I've always got my colour pencils handy. There's 2 brands of pencils in there, Polychromos and Prismacolor, and one is much softer than the other. I can't remember which one, but between the two different types, that works really well for my illustration. As well as a watercolor palette or two. This is my favorite one. It needs a bit of a clean up, doesn't it? This is a beautiful ceramic palette from Gazelle Ceramics, and I've got my gouache paints on there ready to go whenever I get the chance. And then moving over from the drawing corner is my sewing machine. Ooh, some videographic evidence. Oops. So my sewing machine has also had different homes or places over the years. This is not the most ideal setup, but at the same time, I don't do half as much machine piecing as I used to do. I do a lot more by hand now. So it works even if it doesn't work quite as well as it has done previously. But moving from the sewing corner, we have this corner which has had various uses over the years, but right now it's the saxophone practice corner. We have 5 children practicing instruments on a daily basis, and we have them tucked into all corners of the house, so the saxophone player plays up here. Who doesn't love a somewhat rainbow-tized anything collection? It's a little out of order at the moment because who's got time to put them back perfectly? So then we have the long arm frame and quilter. I have a Moxie handy quilter machine. If you look at the type, at the way this frame fits the space, and it's the same on the other side, you'd think we made the space to fit the frame, but we didn't. That was just a very cool coincidence. Continuing further around the corner is my fabric storage. As you can see, it's also the ironing corner, and all kinds of bits and bobs are stored here relating to sewing and life in general. But here's a favourite little corner of vintage haberdashery collected over time. This door here goes through to the bedroom wing of the house, but then this cupboard is full of publications, publications that have my work in or from exhibition catalogues. Also my catalogue of dyeing samples, and then all the commercial fabrics I use in my kits, and my I guess favourite colours to use if I'm using commercial fabrics. And up the top we have all my sketchbooks. But then this cupboard here is all of my hand-dyed fabrics. So this is basically my quilting colour palette. So I know that's a lot of different bits of coloured fabric, and it looks like I've got every colour under the sun, but it's amazing how hard it can still be to find the right colours when I'm making a quilt. So especially reds. So often I just really like a really rich, strong red, and most of the time they end up a bit pink, and I'm not a fan of pink. So I guess that's why I've got a whole shelf of unused pink fabric. The other challenge in working with the hand-dyed fabrics is getting the really dark colours. I know I need to have stronger contrasts of tonal values in my art quilts, but part of the problem is that I struggle to get a good range of nice dark fabric colours. You might be wondering what's through those windows there, and it's our dining room. So when we built the studio, it was really important to me that my studio would have a good connection to the living space. What I haven't shown you actually is these shelves up here. So these shelves hold actually mostly products that are for sale in my shop, but also paints and sample quilts from my patterns, plus a few extra quilts, and just a bit, well, let's have a closer look. Bits for framing, my quilts in these jars, like screws and D-rings and things like that. Some packaging samples from some packaging I was involved in designing for Conscious Candle. Also a whole bunch of clamps, super handy for all kinds of things in the studio. So I guess that's my studio in a nutshell. I didn't perfectly tidy it up for you, but who wants a perfectly tidy artist studio? So, and that gives a quick glimpse. If there's anything you'd like to hear more about, let me know and we can include it in a future recording.